Portia Robinson doesn't discover her pregnancy with a triumphant shout or a perfectly timed montage. It lands like a hush, a small truth that rearranges an entire life. A color on a stick, a number on a lab readout, the unmistakable rhythm of change under a physician's practiced fingertips. She is a surgeon who has built a career on certainty, on the clean lines of test results and protocols, yet the moment the reality settles, certainty deserts her. The question no chart can solve presses in: who is the father? The answer sits at the intersection of two men and one complicated heart: Curtis Ashford, the husband she lost in a tangle of old secrets and fresh fractures, and Isaiah Gannon, the colleague whose steadiness slipped past her defenses precisely because she told herself she wouldn't let it. Fate rarely respects boundaries drawn in pencil. Now Portia must navigate the most public institution in Port Charles, General Hospital, while carrying the most private secret of her life. Secrecy, however, is a fantasy that medical professionals seldom get to keep. Pregnancy has a way of announcing itself long before a press release. In a hospital, the body speaks to people trained to listen. Portia notices Isaiah's eyes narrowing at the small tells, the half-finished coffee, the hand that hovers over her abdomen when she thinks no one is watching, the attention she pays to nausea like she's diagnosing someone else. Isaiah is a clinician to his bones. Observation is his first language. The problem for Portia is that he also knows her rhythms, the quickness in her stride when she's dodging a subject, the calm veneer that sets in when a storm is brewing behind her eyes. She can't bury this in charts and surgical schedules. Not with a man who can read symptoms and silences with equal fluency. The choice she's postponed becomes the choice she must make. Tell Isaiah, and soon, before inference turns into suspicion and suspicion turns into speculation in the staff lounge, in the locker room, in the glances that travel faster than elevators. When she finally speaks the words aloud, the room seems to contract, leaving only the facts. There was overlap, the calendar won't cooperate. A test will be necessary. Isaiah doesn't flinch. He has never been the man who needs time to absorb a crisis. He metabolizes it and moves. The reaction he offers is not flowery, not a promise etched in marble, but a pledge forged in plain steel: whatever we are, I'm in. That's the sentence that changes the air. He does not barter for guarantees or extract concessions. He does not make the child's future contingent on the romance's fate. Isaiah has wanted, in a someday sort of way, to be a father. He said as much in passing, when the hospital lights run dim and conversation drifts to the lives they might lead beyond these walls. He's joked about a cabin, an old gift, a place that feels like legacy more than lumber, and the idea of handing down more than stories. He did not expect the timeline to lurch forward. But timelines are stubborn, and life has signed its name in ink. The promise is simple: if the baby is his, he will show up without drama or delay. He will be there for appointments, for questions that bubble up at 3 a.m., for the decisions that require a steady hand and a clear head. He will stand beside Portia when the hospital corridors turn carnivorous and the rumor mill begins to spin, which it will, because Port Charles has never met a secret it didn't try to monetize. He will not conflate paternity with ownership nor romance with obligation. In a world where love stories too often hinge on ultimatums, Isaiah offers something rarer: presence. But medicine does not accept sentimental pledges in place of data, and neither can Portia. A DNA test will come as inevitably as first kicks and sonograms. The logistics are thorny. Consent matters, timing matters, and discretion matters most of all. Portia's earlier missteps, the ones that detonated her marriage to Curtis, have taught her exactly how corrosive half-truths can be. She is determined that this child will not be shadowed by the sins of secrecy. That resolve is a gift for the baby, but it's also a fuse for the adults. If the test names Isaiah, a new kind of future opens, one with custody schedules written in kindness, not court filings, a romance that might ripen naturally or reseed without bitterness, and a child raised by two doctors who can triage emotions as carefully as emergencies. If the test names Curtis, the blast radius widens. Divorce, once imagined as a clean incision, becomes a wound complicated by hope, history, and the gravitational pull of a shared bloodline. Curtis looms over this story not as a villain or a savior but as the living question of what remains after truth shatters trust. He wanted a marriage built on transparency, he got a labyrinth where the past doubled back without warning. A baby bearing his DNA would not erase betrayal, but it would draw a new map. The man who walked away to preserve his integrity would have to walk back, if not toward Portia then toward a role he cannot outsource, father. The Ashford family, weary and wounded, would awaken. Stella's hard counsel, the kind that slices to save, would arrive at Portia's doorstep wrapped in tradition and tough love. Trina, Portia's heart walking around in the world, would face another pivot, forced to reconcile her mother's vulnerability with the fierce protector she has come to rely on. And Portia, who has already learned how unforgiving a town can be to a woman whose mistakes make headlines, would need to be stronger and softer at once. In the meantime, life does not pause for pending results. The hospital hums. Cases stack up. Portia scrubs in, and nausea becomes both foe and friend, a reminder of what is at stake beyond the sterile blue drapes. Lsaiah finds practical ways to lighten the load without broadcasting his allegiance. He swaps call nights under the pretense of covering a favor someone else owes, diverts consults that would keep her late, quietly makes sure she eats. Their colleagues notice changes but read them as professional courtesy. Doctors are, after all, notorious for watching out for their own. Still, a few eyes sharpen. In a place addicted to patterns, deviation is an alarm. Portia knows that if the story slips, it must slip from her mouth, not someone else's. There is also the matter of ethics. Paternity testing inside the hospital where all three lives intersect is an invitation to disaster. HIPAA exists for a reason, and so do off-site labs. Portia insists on third-party handling and ironclad confidentiality. Lsaiah agrees without argument, which is its own form of intimacy. Curtis, when told, does not rage, he draws himself up with the weariness of a man who has survived worse storms. He will participate. He will not be shamed into silence if the result is his, nor will he be weaponized if it isn't. He is, in all the ways that matter, a grown man standing at the border between pride and purpose. But the announcement alone, there may be a child, rearranges his interior weather. He cannot pretend the future is someone else's problem now. Port Charles culture thrives on spectacle, yet the most consequential scenes often unfold in kitchens and corridors, in the quiet of waiting rooms and the unglamorous light of 6 a.m. The baby story advances in those spaces. There is an ultrasound where Portia laughs without meaning to, a bright, startled sound she hasn't made in months, as a flicker on a monitor lifts the floor under her feet. There is a moment when Lsaiah, waiting outside with the patience of a man who knows not to step over thresholds uninvited, hears that laugh and lets it settle into him like a vow. There is a night when Curtis sits in his car longer than necessary, hands on the wheel, absorbing the knowledge that his life, once more, might be rerouted by love he does not control. There is, threaded through all of it, a sense that this child, whoever's child it is, arrives bearing a demand, be better. For Portia, better means truth in full daylight. She will not repeat the patterns that nearly cost her everything. She tells Trina early, carefully, trusting her daughter to keep a confidence not because secrets are fun to keep but because families deserve the chance to speak privately before the world speaks for them. She tells a small circle at the hospital only what is necessary to adjust schedules and minimize risk. She tells herself, in the mirror, that she has earned no guarantees, only opportunities to do the next right thing. The city will judge anyway, that's what it does. But judgment loses some of its bite when it encounters a woman who refuses to lie to herself. For Lsaiah, better means a fatherhood that does not stake its claim on a romance's success. He imagines doctor's appointments where he is the listener, not the prescriber, a nursery that looks less like a magazine spread and more like a place someone sleeps safely, late-night bottle feeds done with a competence that comes from learning, not bravado. He pictures the cabin, winter outside, a fire inside, and realizes that legacy isn't a deed you pass down but a set of habits: show up, tell the truth, love the child more than you love winning. He does not say any of this out loud, he simply behaves as though it is already true. That is how trust is built. For Curtis, better means refusing to let pain dictate policy. If the child is his, he will not use the baby to negotiate Portia's apology into penance. He will not let pride amputate his presence. He knows grief can make men foolish, he chooses to be wise. If the child is not his, he will grieve privately, not because the world has no right to see a strong man cry, but because this grief is a quiet one, the mourning of a road not taken. Either way, he decides, his worth isn't measured by DNA results. A man is sized by the way he walks through a town that knows his every misstep and keeps walking anyway. The test result will come, inevitably, tucked in an envelope with the unromantic finality of science. But the true story is not the line that says, probability of paternity, 99.99%, so much as the lives already bending to accommodate a child's arrival. Portia's steadiness returns, a sturdier version that incorporates fear without bowing to it. Lsaiah's calm stops being a mask and becomes a method. Curtis's composure is no longer a pose, he is simply a man determined to hold himself with dignity in a narrative that once dragged him by the collar. In soap time, weeks can swallow years, in real time, a baby reorders minutes. Everyone involved is learning to count differently. Of course, Port Charles being Port Charles, complications will attempt to crash the party. There will be a leak someone swears they didn't intend, a headline that renders nuance into gossip, a confrontation in a hospital hallway with too many witnesses and too little grace. There will be an old rival who suggests, with poisonous courtesy, that Portia's judgment is unreliable, that a surgeon who misreads her own life can hardly be trusted to read a scan. There will be moments when Portia wants to vanish beneath the weight of other people's certainty about her choices. But there will also be strong, inconvenient kindness, co-workers who close ranks, friends who appear with soup and silence, a daughter who refuses to let her mother narrate herself as a cautionary tale. Drama makes the noise, love moves the plot. And when the 5 words that started as a rumor settle into reality, whatever we are, I'm in. The baby drama becomes something richer than scandal fodder. It becomes a test case for growth in a town that loves regression. The question is not who gets the girl, not which man triumphs, but who becomes the kind of parent worth having. That's the upgrade this story offers. The cliffhanger isn't whether a lab report lands face up, it's whether 3 complicated adults can choose maturity over melodrama in a place where melodrama pays excellent dividends. If they can, Portia's child will inherit something rare in Port Charles, a beginning that isn't mortgaged to old mistakes. So watch the monitors and the mailboxes, the court calendars and the cafeteria, but more than that, watch the small choices, the text that says, "How are you feeling?" without a demand for details, the appointment kept even when the outcome might sting, the apology delivered without an invoice attached. A baby is coming. The town will do what it always does, gossip, guess, take sides. Let it. The only sides that matter are the ones that form around a crib. Whether the last name on the birth certificate reads Gannon or Ashford, Portia's next chapter has already begun, and for once the most dramatic thing in Port Charles might be the simplest, 3 people deciding to be better than their reputations.